Think we're live.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cass.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to see you. And I'm really excited to have a guest today.
Yes, our first official guest.
Yes, I know. Ashley's going to be disappointed when we say that. She was our guest too, but she's a team guest. This is an outside. Well, I am really, really excited. I hope we have people joining, and I'm sure more and more people are going to listen to it later on. But I'm so excited to introduce John Roberts, a financial planner and an expert CPA, here with us today. I think he's with Edward Jones, and we are just really, really thankful for you to be here. So welcome, John.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited. Hopefully I don't drive you guys nuts today, but it should be a lot of fun. So just happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you for doing this on a Saturday morning. You know, whenever we reach out to people to do anything in the morning on Saturday, they're not as excited as you are. So we appreciate that.
I'm a morning person, so Saturday I'm up and at it at 7 a.m. So
really? Oh, good. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Cass, is everything live and ready to go?
Yes, I have our Facebook group page all lined up. I'm going to add yours. So if anyone has any questions throughout, put them in the comments. I'll be watching those so we can ask John and Ina while we're talking. Yep.
So the reason we decided to do this extremely important topic for us at this point, and we think it's a perfect timing, is it's tax season, right? It's a time where taxes are due, New Year's resolutions, people have dreams and goals and hopes and wishes and all that kind of stuff. So we felt like, with Cass and I being very knowledgeable and loving real estate industry, part of real estate is we need to have people who have financial resources to be able to buy houses and have their things in order. So we thought this would be a perfect timing to bring somebody who has that knowledge and hopefully give some guidance to people who are listening. We have questions for John today that are very beginner's questions for somebody who's never used a financial advisor, that hopefully will help them understand. And then hopefully as we go through it a little bit more, John can evolve and help our clients who already a little bit, on a more savvy and use the financial advisors and see the benefit and hopefully connect with John later as well. Cool. So let me give you a little background on John. So John, as we mentioned, was a CPA for about 5 years, right, John?
That's right. I am a tax season veteran and so happy to not be doing taxes anymore. Just pro tip out there for everybody: if you visit your CPA or tax preparer, do not bring them like all kinds of like goodies and candies, because we get a ton of it, and it's basically you crash at your desk daily off sugar. So it's a nice thought, but please,
you're like
enough.
John, I love that. You're like public announcements before we go into the questions. Do not bring this. So, John, I have a whole bio for you. Not my favorite. I thought the interesting thing that I read about you, and then I want you to kind of go from there, is that you originally, your first career, you were a police officer.
Yes, believe it or not, I know I look very intimidating, I'm sure, as you can see.
That didn't work out.
Pink tie and but yes, I was a police officer for the city of Alexandria, so just outside of Washington, D.C. And my biggest skill as a police officer was talking, and then I would have a much bigger partner beside me, and I would give them the choice, and it worked out very well, like 90% of the time. So,
got it. And then you decided to go into becoming a CPA, which is so different.
Yeah. So my wife is actually also a CPA. So as you can imagine, we are very exciting as a married couple.
Yeah, so, your dinners are definitely going to be fun.
Yes, absolutely. So she kind of got me interested, and we decided once we had a kid, she thought maybe the police officer, as you know, it can be a dangerous job at times. So she thought a transition for me would be good, and so that's how I got into this world.
Gotcha. And then you did that for many years. I'm sure did really well and loved many parts of it, but then obviously something led you to go to the financial world and became a financial planner at Edward Jones, which is what we're going to be talking about. So how did that happen?
So I've always really been interested in investing in stocks in particular. So, I was working as a CPA, had a chance to listen to and work with we had some kind of in-house advisors at my CPA firm, got really interested in doing that work. It wasn't available for me to make that transition. So then that's why I decided to kind of move on and kind of leave the CPA world to become a financial advisor. That's where the opportunity was.
Sure.
And I just really like talking to clients, doing that interaction. You get much more interaction as an advisor versus the tax accountant, where they just see you maybe twice a year and they just want to know how much do I have to pay in taxes? And boy, that's really high. I think you made a mistake, John. You definitely made a mistake.
Have you been to my conversations with my CPA? Are you talking about my camera? What are you doing?
It's just a guess. I don't know. It's just a common theme.
I'm paying you the big bucks to keep them down. What is going on?
Right. Exactly.
So you were done with listening to those conversations. You're like, okay, I got to help on a different level here.
Yeah, it's usually a lot better to help somebody kind of grow their money versus telling them you owe X amount to the government. Your federal tax return is this, then Ohio wants this. It gets, they all start adding up, and you see their face kind of change color, and they become mad at you sometimes. Not all the time. I usually try and use my charm to kind of get away from that. It doesn't always work.
Got it. So how did, you said you've transitioned to financial work because you obviously, like you said, you wanted to interact with people and help them more through that process. Why did you pick, before we go into just traditional questions, why did you pick Edward Jones?
I think because the investment philosophy of the firm really aligned with what I also believed. And essentially we believe in a long-term relationship, and it's, we're here to start with you day one, and we want to stay with you forever. And that's also like the investments that we pick and focus on. That's also kind of the idea. I guess maybe, I don't know if people, if you're watching the news, you've probably seen a lot of stuff on like GameStop and all this crazy, all these stocks jumping up and down the market. We kind of tend to stay away from those types of things. Not that they don't work, but.
Yeah. So Edward Jones, it sounds like, from just if I understood, is more of a conservative route, more for somebody who's looking for long-term planning, retirement, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Sure. Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, Cass, do you want to get started? Do we have any questions so far? Do you want to?
So no questions so far. We do have, over 10 people watching right now. So people are listening to us. So if you have any questions, the questions that I kind of have will be your beginner questions to start. So who, when, and why should you hire a financial advisor?
Oh, man, that's a good question. So typically, the typical client I work with usually is somebody that is maybe, 5 to 10 years away from retirement, or they're living in retirement. And I also work with a lot of local business owners. That's typically who I am working with. That doesn't mean that, say if you just finished college and you just want to learn how to start saving, like I've spoken to people on the phone. That's like a 10 to 15 minute conversation. You don't need to meet with me or pay me anything to tell you like just the really down and dirty basics to get started with saving. But my typical client is going to be, nearing retirement or in retirement, and they're very concerned with, now that I'm not working, how do I create this paycheck in retirement? How long is my money going to last? That's my usual focus.
Got it. Okay.
What are you getting top questions during COVID-19?
I can't. So COVID-19 has been definitely like a change for all of us. And I think it's, the effect that it's had on people, it's going to vary on your situation. Obviously, when COVID first came about, the stock market itself saw quite a downturn, and there was a lot of, hey, my account went down 30%. What do I do? Which is really scary. And so part of my job is reminding the people that I work with that, hey, we set up this plan. It's a long-term plan. We were ready for this. Now it's time to stick with what we planned for, and not panic and not jump off, the boat, and that's not going to work. So I think managing expectations during COVID has been interesting, but I'm sure you've, with your own work in real estate, I'm sure there's been different things happening there as well. So I'm sure you can relate as to emotions during this time.
So it sounds like the questions are not too much different, except for the part that obviously, like you said, if their particular portfolio has decreased, they're usually panicking, and you're trying to, is when somebody does panic, if I can go a little deeper about that, and is the plan typically, just so I understand from that, is it typically just don't touch, leave it alone, and just don't pay attention to it, and don't look at it, and don't open it every 2 seconds?
So yeah, and that's, if you, it's like Warren Buffett. There's probably a lot of people that are familiar with Warren. He's everywhere. He's, he loves his Coke for breakfast, and he only spends $3.25 every morning for his breakfast. Warren would say that he believes that, in his opinion, a sign of intelligence sometimes is not doing anything, just meaning that when everybody else is panicking and we think, oh, we need to do something, the best option really might be just don't do anything. Let's just wait. Let's just wait to see what happens. Because oftentimes when there are these corrections in the market, that might be, if you're going to do anything, you might want to invest more. At least that's where I usually come from. I'm not going to say, get out and run. That's not the right answer. But unfortunately, my main job is just to provide that assurance that, yes, we are doing the right thing. Trust me, you're going to be very happy in a couple of months. As we saw, once that initial dip finished, it jumped right back up. So
then you became popular again. People started liking you again.
People like you. They're all of a sudden you're their best friend again. And I hate to think about myself as conditionally your friend, but sometimes that's the case.
Got it. All right, Cass, what's the next question?
For those who start using a financial planner for the first time, what seems to be their biggest surprise about the benefit of using one?
So I think probably the biggest surprise for people is they don't really realize how deep your relationship will get with your planner or your advisor, whoever this person is. You become very intertwined, like within their whole life. Obviously, money, finances, it's not just an amount in an account. It has to, it involves your family, your businesses, your retirement, your vacation. So I end up knowing a lot about you. We become very close, and eventually you'll start calling me just to talk about, your pets, or the fact that, hey, John, my hot water heater just blew up in the basement, and I'm so upset about it. And can you believe how much it costs to replace this? And that's part of my job. I spend a lot of time, just being there with you through your life, and we become very close.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar. I think that can relate to us too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think as you're saying that, it's like part of any service, right? Attorneys, CPA, even though we joked around, it's only twice a year, but really, I mean, your CPA is in a very important part of your journey, your financial journey, to make sure that they position you and guide you, and then financial advisor. So it's like back to that whole, like, if your goal is to do certain financial things in life, like you got to align yourself with the right people that guide you in their right categories, from real estate to financial advisor to your accountant to your attorney. God forbid if you're in trouble or need some guidance there as well. But when you got that group of people, your little village, you grow much faster and with great support. So awesome.
Perfect. So a lot of people may not start thinking about planning for their financial future until after they have already purchased a house. How can they use a financial planner before the process to set them up for success in a real estate transaction?
John, before you answer that question really quick, and I'll let you do. No, seriously, it's something that, especially in my higher end clients, it's a very common thing that I do hear. Let me talk to my financial advisor, and then we will proceed from this and that. And I'll be honest with you, because I've never talked to a financial advisor before buying my real estate ever. what are they getting approval for? So go ahead.
So for that, really, the call is gonna be, hey, John, I want to buy this house, and these are like the interest rates that I'm looking at, and this is gonna be, I'm thinking the loan's gonna be this much. Can I buy this? Is it gonna fit, within, like the plan? Can I cover it? That's generally the main question. And so, we're gonna look at, how much do you owe in other places as far as like debt, maybe, if you have cars or, whatever the case may be. Can you take on more? How's it going to change your situation? And they just want that yes, my guy told me I could do it. I feel better now. Yes, I can do it. I'm comfortable moving forward. So really it's just that comfort, the assurance. And then if, say 6 months down the road, they bought the house and now all of a sudden, they can't afford to put the patio in the back, then they call me and say, hey, you told me I could buy this and I was going to have enough. What happened? And then you have to kind of work around that as well. Gotcha.
But really, it sounds like you said, like, because you do know so much about their life, they're reaching out to you because you're like their whole solution. It's not just, like a realtor or just a CPA. You're somebody who knows their entire picture. And really, on a serious note, obviously we're joking around about, if we ever, give any kind of, but like on a serious note, you're able to look at all their stuff and see if they're in line with their long-term goals and not overextending themselves or underextending or whatever. Do you get people to often needing to liquidate some of their, stocks or whatever they have to buy a home? Do you see that often?
Sure. So it depends on the situation. So I guess to kind of not get too technical, for the most part, I would say, if you're looking at accessing or tapping like funds set aside for retirement, generally I'm going to say no. It's not. But if you're somebody that has an outside investment account that's not tied to retirement per se, yes, I'll have clients that will, they've been using this account to build up over a number of years with the intent of selling off part of that to buy a house.
Gotcha.
Or to, I have a guy that he, say, hey, I want to buy a Tesla. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. If you really love that Tesla and fine, you can do it. You deserve it. If you want to do it. That's up to you. So yes, we do find that.
You do see that a lot. But whenever somebody asks to take money from retirement, this is where you're pretty strict on your philosophy. Do not tap into that.
Yeah, and for multiple reasons, but just the tax implications of that, and then not only if you're thinking about doing something like that, you have to talk to me. I would say talk to your CPA also, or the guy that handles your taxes. That conversation has to happen. So it's a little bit more involved.
Got it. And that's what I wanted to bring, because I wanted you to bring that up. I don't think it's just tapping into your retirement plan is a bad idea for them just in general, because you should have a plan for retirement, but it's also there's tax that are going to be affecting you, that you're going to pay way more. So understanding that whole picture before you're going into it is very important.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. What's the next question?
Awesome. So what factor do people tend to forget to consider when they're thinking about buying?
So I like this question, and I'm kind of interested as to what you all think as I kind of talk about this. So for me, when it comes to buying a home, I think especially if you're the buyer, I think a lot of people get hung up on, I want a deal. Like I really want a deal. And for me, your cost is relative to value. So, your house, it's a big investment, right? For most people, this is the most money, the biggest loan they're going to take on for their life. So I would say, don't walk away from that home that you love just because you didn't get a deal, because you want to be happy. And part of my job as an advisor is not just looking at the numbers. Are you happy with your life? Like, if you're not satisfied, with your life, who cares, how much you have saved, how big your bank account is. You have to be happy also.
Yeah.
So, don't walk away from that dream home or that neighborhood you really want because you didn't get a deal. that's maybe it might be worth it, pay what they're asking. It might be a good fit.
Yeah. I like your philosophy on that. Good idea. Now, but on a serious note, obviously that it's that I like what you just said, that your philosophy in helping them is obviously to grow wealth, right? That's the financial advisor's job, preparing for retirement, preparing for those Tesla purchases if they want, but also look at the big picture of what makes you happy, right? Because if you have all the money in the world, like you said, you're saved at 70 years old, but you didn't live and you were miserable, you didn't have anything you want, what does that mean? So having the big picture and looking at it as a whole is super important. And that's where a good financial advisor comes in. They're not just focused on making sure you have all your money in your stocks. So you make a lot of money on stocks and being obsessed with that, but having a well-rounded portfolio.
Yeah. Your life is not, your finances are important. Yeah, we get it. But if you're not living your life and enjoying your life, and if you're not happy, healthy, all those good things, the money's not going to change that. I tell my wife all the time, like, we have to remember, you got to live a little bit, take a trip, go out to dinner. Don't just scrimp all the time. Yeah,
definitely live with your means. And this is where obviously, again, a good financial advisor helps with that. What does that mean in your life? Doesn't mean you can take 10 trips or one trip. Doesn't mean you can take, go to the fancy restaurant. But for every price point, there is still a way to be able to live. And this is where you come in to help them. That's awesome. Okay.
Yep.
When people don't have a financial plan, what is the biggest area they end up wasting money on, or an area they could have saved?
So I think for this one, what I really like, and at the very basic level, and I don't think you don't have to have an advisor or a planner for this. This is something I would tell anybody. If you're not looking at your monthly expenses or keeping track of that, like, how much do I make? How much do I spend? And actually look at it and think about it. You need to do that, because you just be surprised. Amazon adds up. Target adds up. I mean, for me, Chipotle.
Cass and I are like, hold on, we're moving away.
Is he looking at my stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, by the time I go to Chipotle and I add the cauliflower rice and the guac, that's $5 or $6 extra. Multiply that, right? So, just where is your money going? And just so you're conscious of it. So if you want to make a change or need to make a change, you can. If you're not conscious of it, there's so many people I talk to that they don't know how much they spend. I don't know where the money goes. You got to start there.
John, do you have any tools, just so we can give something to our, whoever's listening today, any kind of maybe like an app or something that we can refer them to? And if you don't right now, like, think about it, that somebody could like just simply start plugging in just the basics at this point to understand that.
I'm pretty sure that, there are a ton of apps out there now that can do that. One of the early ones was Mint, M-I-N-T, Mint. That was a pretty easy app that you can connect all your different accounts to it. I'm not sure if that's free or if you have to pay for it, but I've heard good things about that one. And aside from Mint, there's many other ones that you can use. So, or you can just be me and be a real nerd and use Excel, although I'm not sure I'd recommend that.
John, actually, that's what I was about to say. Or there's a free seller. Just, Microsoft Word, Excel, just start typing. Right. whatever works for you. I actually, Cass knows I love like just a Google Calendar. I know it's crazy, but I put everything on there. Like, so it's so easy for me. It's like my whole life right in my calendar, from appointments to whatever I'm thinking, or if I'm, if I did a big purchase, I actually put it on there. It's just kind of crazy to look back in the month and like see your calendar. You're like, wait, why did I buy that for Tuesday randomly? Like, that was stupid. Or like one of the things that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to, but I mean, it's a coffee talk, so it's very ironic that I'm bringing up coffee right now, but like, how many people go to Starbucks every single day? That is I hope, people who are listening are not thinking I'm judging them, but I am a little bit. That is my pet peeve when I see somebody who's buying coffee at Starbucks every single day. And then that same exact person is sitting there and going, I don't know why I'm not saving. I don't know why I'm not able to buy a nicer car. I don't know why I'm not able to do this. And it's like, you're looking going, I don't know, because you're buying an $8 coffee every day, 8 times 5 multiplied by 52, and and on and on. So like, that's a basic one, but it's like you said, that if you got to get conscious. So if you're listening to this right now and you're not sure why you're not in a financial place where you want to be and why you're not saving, I think my advice, it would be just what John just said, is just like, start just writing down, like you purchase something, put it in your calendar, put it in a Google form, put it in a whatever makes it easier, or Mint or a million other apps. And then just evaluate like 1 month, right? Just see 1 month of your expenses. And I think that will give you such a big picture. And at that point, either you can change it or maybe seek guidance of a financial advisor at that point, at least, but you're ready. You're coming and going, look at what I'm spending. I know this is obvious, but can you be my therapist here too and help me go through this?
Sure. That's I'm glad you kind of touched on that. I think a lot of my job, I'm obviously not a therapist, right? But it's just, you just want somebody you can bounce stuff off of and have the conversation. And then you trust that, the feedback that they're giving you is going to help. And that's a lot of the job, really. I like to say that the investing part isn't very hard. It's really, it's just continuing to engage the person I'm working with and keep on talking to them and keeping them on track. That's the secret sauce.
Yeah. Consistency. We always talk about that on our team. Everything needs to have consistency, or if it's random, it just doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't pan out. The story is usually not as good when there's no consistent pattern there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions, Cass?
Yeah, just a couple more. So we've seen a lot of priority changes in real estate during COVID from what people are looking for in a home. Have you seen people's priority change when it comes to financial planning?
Oh, good question. I love that question.
Yeah, gosh, and I think, with that one, kind of the overall sense with COVID is just the effect that it's had on different segments of the population. It's been devastating for some people where they're not worried about a financial plan. They're worried about, can I make my house payment? Where are my groceries coming from? And it's, and that's tough. And then there's people in a different boat where, yes, I can work from home. I'm not paying for gas anymore in my commute. So all of a sudden I have a little bit of extra money around. What do I do with it? So it's been such a drastic difference on who you are and how you were affected. That it's that one personally for me has just been tough, because you just see where one group of people have had a really hard time, and then others are like, hey, well, geez, I have, a couple extra grand this month, what do I do with it? And we've seen that kind of in this current market where all of a sudden a lot of people are sitting at home and using Robinhood or whatever to start trading like stocks. They've never done it before because they have some extra money. And it's actually had an effect on, like what the quote unquote pros, how they're doing things. So, it's been a unique experience for sure. And, it just has hit people so differently. For me, that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. I feel like, just to add to that, Cass, right? We feel the same way. It's like it's almost like very, very little, like at least in my 17 plus years in real estate, I don't think I've ever seen such two extreme pull, like some that we're doing fundraisers or we're giving all this stuff to help them out, such an extreme. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is devastating. And then there's a whole other sector of people that we're working with and they're doing better than they've ever done, and we did a coffee talk. I think, was it January or before? But anyways, we did where it showed specific graphs and why that happened and who was affected. And it was very extreme on the sector that was affected and what we're seeing there. And then the ones that are doing better than they've ever done. So I think that's why we're seeing such a craziness that's happening in real estate too, is because the sector that was not affected by it is pretty large. And it's the biggest, it's the biggest sector that's buying real estate and probably investing right now, right? That's the biggest one that hasn't been affected. That's why the market is doing crazier than it's ever done. And the sector that's been affected is smaller, but they definitely have been affected. And it's very sad, obviously, but they're not as big. That's why we're not feeling it as much in our everyday life as we have in 2008. In 2008, everybody was affected. There was nobody you talked to really that was like, I'm doing great. Everybody was depressed and everybody was not making money and everything was really, really bad. But right now it's like you almost don't know who you're talking to. You're like, you start asking questions, and then you're like, okay, you're in that sector. Now I can help you that way. Or you're in this sector, and we need to make sure we're more conservative here. Yeah, it's interesting that it's back to the whole thing that it's very, the financial world and real estate, I mean, obviously real estate is the biggest investment. You're dealing with just more stocks and the financial bigger planner, but they all come together. And then back to the CPA. And again, how I love that you have that background, that you can really guide people on like, hey, don't sell right now because you are going to lose a lot of money. Talk to your CPA because obviously you have a separate person for that, but don't do that because you're going to lose a lot of money in that way. And I love that.
Yep.
Cool.
So I'm going to kind of group this last question together. So what do you love about your job? And then what should one ask when thinking about hiring a financial advisor? What kind of questions would we ask that person?
Yeah, both really good. So what I personally really like about my job and why I've kind of gotten away from being a traditional CPA and becoming an advisor, it's those relationships. That's what I like. I like getting to know everything about you, having that long-term just commitment and ongoing conversation and learning about each other. For me, it really it's more fulfilling. I'd rather do that than just say, well, let's talk about your tax planning and you're going to owe this. That's just too dry. I really like getting to know somebody and growing with them. So I think that's my favorite part of being an advisor. And so the questions you should ask. So I think figure out, if you're thinking about working with an advisor or a planner, whoever it is, make sure you're clear on, figure out who they are. So if you don't have a recommendation for somebody, don't be afraid to call them or meet with them and figure out really what they do. What's their typical client? Because within the, financial universe, we have people who work through an insurance company and they're like a financial advisor or planner. There's people that work and do investments that are advisors or planners. There's CPAs who focus on personal finances. So figure out who it is you're talking to, who they work with and what they do before you just assume that they can provide you with what you need, because it might not be the case. So ask questions and figure out, how are you paid? How are you compensated? That's also a big one and a big concern for people. Like, are you paid just on your advice? Are you paid, through transactions? How do you make money? Because that's going to affect, me, right? So don't be shy. Ask plenty of questions. Put them through the ringer. They should answer everything and be very comfortable doing it.
John, I have a question before you go, because I know you have more points. I'm sure you will on that. So when it comes down to, because that's always the biggest one in any industry, right? Yes, you're great. I love you. Help me. But how much are you going to cost?
Right.
So in real estate, there's certain norms or parameters and all that kind of stuff. In financial advisor world, planner, first of all, I think you brought up a really good point that if somebody who's not in your industry doesn't know that you guys specialize, just like in real estate, people don't realize there's specialties involved, like buyer specialist, investor specialist, listing specialist. In financial world, it's the same thing. So like you said, make sure that whoever you're working with is a specialist in what you're trying to accomplish in your goal. Mm-hmm. But as far as the pay, is there some sort of like a industry standard, like a percentage or per advice, or is it totally across every company's different, every advisor is different?
So you see different things. I think right now, what you really hear a lot of, and it's kind of like the buzzword is, oh, are you a fiduciary? Everybody has an ask, hey, are you a fiduciary? That's the first thing they want to throw out there. Meaning that as a fiduciary, you have to act in your client's best interests, But really, if you're compensation there can take different forms. The most common model that you'll see for most is an assets under management fee, meaning I'm coming to you with $100,000. I want you to invest it for me. And that person, if it's an asset under management fee, they're going to get paid maybe 1.3, 1.4, 1.5% of that $100,000 annually, every year, no matter if your account goes up or if it goes down, they're still taking that percentage. That's the typical industry standard. Now, you might find a financial planner that is a fee-only planner. meaning you'll come and meet with them. They'll provide you with a written financial plan. There's going to be a range, but it'll also be a one-time fee. You'll meet, here's the plan, now pay me. And if you come back later, I can answer questions for you, but it may not be an ongoing relationship. So those are kind of what you really hear about and see now.
Got it. Oh, good to know. So when it comes down to percentage that you said, it's set on 100,000 no matter what. So like you said, if you made that out of that 100,000, you made this client 300,000, you're still going to get paid on the 100,000 that you gave them.
So with that assets under management fee, right? You come with me, with $100,000 to invest, and that whatever percentage it is, typically it gets taken out. So we'll make it really simple. We'll just say that I take my 1.5% at the end of the year on December 31st. So if December 31st, if your account was 300,000, then that percentage would be on that 300,000. Oh, now, if your account went down to 70,000, it would be on 70. So I'm compensated on either, if you're just the growth or the amount of your account.
That's why I wanted to clarify. The way you said it at first, it sounded like it didn't matter if it went up or down, you would be compensated on another thing, but it's not. So you're motivated not only to be fiduciary for them in their best interest in general, but also if you make more money for them, you're making more money as well.
Right. And I don't want to get too into the details here, but yes, that is one model. And there's also a lot of people now, if they hear commission, their antenna goes, oh, commissions, oh, that's bad. I don't want anybody who gets paid on commissions, but it could be cost effective for somebody to actually use that model. And here's the example. You bring in $100,000 to invest. I invest it for you right now, build your portfolio, and I take a commission, so that 100,000, because of the commission, now we're going to invest, let's just say 95,000. So I had a $5,000 commission. But if you don't do any more trades or you don't do anything for 10 years and say that account grows to 500,000 or whatever, I'm not getting paid anything on that growth. I just had my commission up front. So
there is that model too.
Long term.
So there's multiple models is what you're saying. There's not one, but you just gave a good range. Yeah,
that's your kind of what you're going to come across, either assets under management or that commission structure. But a lot of people hear commission now, they think it's bad, and it could be and it couldn't be. Just be careful. It's not always a bad word.
Got it. Okay, what other questions does somebody ask? So they should know what their philosophy, what they specialize in, and then what their fees or how they get compensated for it. What's the other question somebody should ask?
Also, I want to know how much, how you're compensated. I want to understand your philosophy. If it was me, I might ask, is there a reference? Can you give me, somebody that you work with now that I can go speak to, and ask them about you? Would always be something that, I'd recommend. Just if if you're looking for a doctor, maybe you want a reference just to have that feedback. But I think those are really the main ones. I think at the end of the day, you just want to work with somebody that you understand very clearly what they do, how they do it, how they're compensated, and that when you talk to them, you like talking with them because they're going to spend a lot of time doing it. So if you don't like them, if their personality stinks, maybe consider somebody else, because it's just why spend that time with somebody you don't really want to talk to? That's their job.
Gotcha. So you're having a connection with that person because they become such a big part is a very important factor.
Mm-hmm.
See, I have a philosophy. I don't really care if I like you, but if you make me a lot of money, I will hang out with you. So
trust me, I know some successful advisors like that.
But whatever. I'm kidding. No, obviously getting along and having comfortable. And like you said, having that comfort that person has your back. I think that's a very important thing. You said the word fiduciary, and we use that in real estate as well. We have fiduciary loyalty to you as our client. That's the terminology we use. And I take that very seriously. And I remember not too long ago, I had a client, I read that too as their rights as they're signing their consumer guide. And he's like, that's a really big word, Ina, that you're like, that's, like not a big word, but like, it's a very powerful statement that you said. And I go, I take that very powerful. It is very serious. It is my job. If you sign with me, if you agree, if you trust me with the most expensive financial asset that you have, which is real estate for most people, absolutely. I think for you, I want to make sure I take care of you and make sure that you're in the best, you're in best hands. And it's always going to be your decision, like, right? I'm sure you say that too to your clients. It's your decision of what you feel comfortable, but it's my job to inform you of all your options and rights in this process to get you to the best successful story. And then it's your choice to trust or not trust. But taking that responsibility, I think, as a professional is very important. And Cass and I do that. We talk about that a lot, that if somebody's hiring us and trusting us, our advice, and we need to take ownership on our advice very, very highly. And that's why we can't just throw advices out there without being confident in what we're saying. Because people do take it seriously.
Yeah.
So very cool. One of the other things that that I wanted to add that I think is important, just like in real estate, but I'm sure in the financial world, that I would want to throw in, I think that John didn't mention, there's good questions, but to understand how often is your portfolio being re-looked at, right? Like how often is your financial advisor either meeting with you or just re-looking at your file? Because I think it's the same thing in real estate. A lot of times people feel like, you sign a contract with somebody and then you're like, okay, done. Next, it goes back into the back burner and then you're going after next one and you're just like looking at it randomly. I think knowing, like setting the right expectations of and understanding what that is, like we're going to meet twice a year. We're going to meet once a year. You're going to hear a phone call from me once a month, or whatever it is. I think that personally to me, especially establishing a relationship, is super crucial with anybody, but especially a financial advisor, because they know all your money, like they have everything. So if you sit there in limbo and going, I wonder what John is doing, that's not a good feeling, right? That just makes people not comfortable. So yeah. Awesome, John. Any other thoughts that you wanted to share? Anything we didn't ask that was something that somebody should be conscious of or think about it? And if somebody's thinking they shouldn't use a financial advisor and they should just do it on their own, anything you can persuade somebody, we'll give you 10 seconds of why they should seek guidance of a financial advisor versus doing it on their own.
Well, I think that one is, I kind of get that on the phone a lot versus what do you do for me and that type of thing. And I could find, statistics all day that are going to say, well, somebody who uses a financial advisor, their portfolio is going to make a blah, blah, blah more than, doing it on your own. And, I think those things, they make sense. But at the end of the day, it's, if you're very comfortable doing it on your own, then I'm not going to say you have to have a financial advisor, right? If you want to do the homework and read some books on your own, it's kind of like doing home repairs. If you want to watch the YouTube video and yank the ceiling light out of your house and rewire it yourself, sure. Like I do that sometimes. I haven't burned my house down yet. But if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, maybe seek help from a professional. That would be, it may be more cost effective. You would spend your time doing something else you like versus managing your portfolio. So it really just depends on your situation. That's kind of how I pitch it.
I think, I know you kind of made it, a little bit of a joke about like, oh, financial advisor can make, this, and you don't like to use that as a reason for it. But I think, in real estate, we can absolutely say like what a percentage that I can bring to the table to compensate. Like what I will do for you will be X, Y, and Z better than if you do it on your own. And this is where you would be better off. I think in a financial advisor world, I think people do need to know that. So if I can just, throw that out there, I think it is important because I'm married to a very engineer brain computer guy who's like, I can do everything myself, right? I told you that I have Excel sheet. I'm very, very smart. I read a lot. But like with him, the only way I could convince him to go to a financial advisor, if I can say those stats, if I can prove to him that using John will bring us X, Y, and Z more than you doing it on your own. So just my philosophy. If I know you're obviously more about relationship and looking at a big picture, which is awesome. But from everything I've researched, using a professional, not just anybody, but a professional in any industry should net you more than doing it on your own based on everything I've ever researched on.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the research does point to that. I mean, if you look at, Vanguard is one of the biggest, financial services companies out there, and Vanguard, who's very conservative, they had a study that, per their study, using a professional advisor typically ends up getting you at 2 to 3% better on your portfolio over time, which, that's a pretty significant amount if you consider, compounding and growth over like 20 years is going to add up significantly. So sure, there is research out there that does prove that out, based on what they've looked at.
Awesome. Very cool.
We do have a question that we got on our live stream, Mr. Len Gold. He says, if you are with a financial planner for a number of years, how do you are getting the best return as opposed to changing planners? I don't know if he worded that. How do you are getting the best return as opposed to changing planners? How do you get the best return instead of changing planners?
Well, I'm thinking maybe if he's wondering like how to measure, his return with, look at my portfolio with John, and am I getting a good return versus, and so the easy and hard answer with that is you'd have to benchmark it somehow. So, if you turn on the financial news or whatever, you want to look at your portfolio return and compare it to like a benchmark. Where that gets murky with comparing it to that benchmark is how your portfolio is set up with your advisor. How much risk are you taking? What's your time horizon? Because depending on the mix that your advisor selected, you may not be able to fairly compare it to certain benchmarks. So, I think that's a conversation, have the conversation with your advisor, like, hey, I'm interested. How can we compare this to a benchmark? How are we doing? And have them, talk to you about it. And if you're not convinced, go get a second opinion. I offer that all the time. People call me and say, hey, John, I've had an advisor, for 20 years and I love them. And I'm like, well, that's great. Could I sit down with you and look at what you have and this lets you know if I think you are doing, if you're getting that return, or how is that comparing with, what I think you should be getting. That doesn't hurt to get a second and third opinion. Just like if you had a doctor and they recommend this surgery, maybe go get a second opinion. Do I really need to do this? Similar idea.
I love that, John. I think just, first of all, I'm glad we have a question, so that's great. But like you said, I love that you said, ask your current financial advisor, on, for them to show you, right? Like, don't be afraid to have that conversation, because sometimes we're feeling like we're going to offend them.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't. If you offend your realtor, if you offend your accountant, if you offend your advisor with questions, they're not the right fit for you. So you need to move on. No question, especially understanding better, should offend that professional, and they should be able to either answer or at least say, we don't have an answer and here's why. Mm-hmm. So I love that you said that don't be afraid to ask. And then the second part, don't be afraid to compare. You have to, especially if you've been with somebody for a very long time, and if you're already skeptical and you ask them and they're not giving you an answer, take your portfolio, bring it to John if John is your go person or whoever you feel comfortable with, mm-hmm. and get another opinion too. Just like with real estate, right? We come out, we give people market analysis, and then people get another market analysis, and then they interview 3, 4, 5 people, and then, whoever they connect the most and whoever persuade the most knowledge in what is going to happen is who they choose. So do the same thing with financial advisors. Because I think people feel very overwhelmed by, I think even financial advisors more than real estate, because real estate, because of the HGTV world, became more approachable. And people are feeling like, oh, look at this show. I can do this, I can do that, which we all know it's a lot more difficult than those awesome shows that they show on there. But it's still more understandable to a general public. Financial advisors, I think, are very overwhelming to people, and they're like almost intimidated. They're not going to be ready for it. And that's why we wanted to bring John today. So we're going to wrap on that, is because we wanted to make sure people start thinking about it. Don't be afraid of reaching out to a financial advisor. It's not as overwhelming or costly as you think it is if somebody's guiding you in the right way through mm-hmm. the process. And there's different structures out there for people. So depending on your personality, if you're more hands-on, there's one option. If you need somebody to just trust with, there's another option. So that's why we brought this, and we're so glad, John, you were here today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking your time and answering all these questions. Cass, anything else we have before we wrap up?
Nothing on our end. I hope that helped Len, so we can always reach out to him if he has any more questions.
Awesome. I put John's number, John Roberts with Edward Jones, 330-670-0100 is his number. Feel free to call him. We get nothing out of it, so don't think John is doing any kind of kickbacks here. We picked John because we thought he was a good fit for our personalities and our culture, and we love that he was a financial advisor and a CPA. So you're getting 2 for 1 here situation. So I hope you guys reach out to him and seek his guidance.
Well, thanks for having me. I would love to come back in a non-financial position and just throw my 2 cents on real estate anytime. So,
okay.
You know,
I like that. We're gonna have
to that could be good.
So I know where your cents are going. Oh, awesome. Well, everybody, whoever's joining, thank you. Cass, have a great day. John, have a wonderful day. And we'll see you all next month with another great topic. Talk to y'all later.
Bye-bye. Thanks.